Great value propositions target essential customer jobs, pains, and gains, and do so extremely well. Your customer profile may contain countless jobs, pains, and gains, but your value map highlights which ones you intend to focus on. But don't forget, an outstanding value proposition can still fail if your business model is flawed. Successful companies embed outstanding value propositions in scalable and profitable business models. Use the value proposition canvas to create products and services that customers want. Get started at strategizer.com.
Awesome. So, as you can see from the video, the canvas is divided into two parts. The value map on the left, which consists of your products and services, your pain relievers, your gain creators, and the customer profile on the right, which lists your customer jobs, pains, and gains. And we learn from the customer first by observing them, researching them, asking them questions. We do that first in order to create some type of value that they actually need, want, or desire. And you guys have already done that. You've already gone ahead and created this value, but it's important, is, we talked about earlier in iterations and how do you modify how you talk about your product and talk about your service. The idea is first, this is why we talked about researching our customers first, understanding them really well, developing personas first. We do all of that first so that we can tailor our offering properly in a way that will entice and attract them in the best way possible. Now, the purpose, as mentioned in the video, of this canvas is to create an ideal fit between what we observe and what we know about our customers and what value we create for them based on this knowledge. However, this must all still work within the confines of a sustainable business model, okay? So to start off today, for step one, you're gonna pull up your customer profile, make sure that's up on your screen or you've drawn it out, the little circle with the three pieces of pie there. And we're gonna start in the first section of the customer profile, which is the customer jobs. So I want you guys right now to start thinking about one of your customer segments that you've already listed off when you were maybe doing your personas, doing your business model canvas. Start thinking specifically about one of your segments from your canvas. And because when we do a value proposition canvas, when we do this exercise, you can only focus on one customer segment at a time, okay? And the idea when we start in customer jobs is to list jobs to be done by a prospective customer or buyer that you have, okay? So when we list off customer jobs here, what we're actually talking about, we're talking about the tasks that they need to perform. We're talking about the problems that they need to solve. We're talking about the needs that they have to satisfy, okay? And, the jobs, essentially, they describe an important issue your customers are trying to solve in their work or in their lives. And it could be that, the tasks they're trying to perform and complete, the problems they're trying to solve, as I mentioned, and needs they're trying to satisfy. So sometimes you'll hear the phrase jobs to be done. And that concept was created by Strategizer and a company called Innosight. So if you're Googling, customer jobs, there's a lot of research out there on it and how to understand jobs that customers are trying to do around your product, your service. So that term jobs to be done is kind of the vernacular you would use. Now, there are different types of jobs that customers are trying to get done. Some of them are functional, when your customers try to perform or complete a specific task or solve a specific problem, they're aiming to get a functional job done, okay? A job can also be social. So trying to look good or gaining power or status or social jobs. So we think back to Nespresso, one of the jobs that Nespresso helps people get done is, have a perceived sense of style, perceived sense of status. So these jobs describe how a customer wants to be perceived by others. So those are social jobs. Emotional jobs, these are the ones where, your customers may seek a specific feeling, such as feeling good or feeling secure and confident. This is a social job, okay? Sorry, that is more of an emotional job, apologize. Essentially, what basic needs is your customer trying to satisfy in your product or service category? Okay, that's what you're trying to answer here. So if we look at an example here, I have an example from Revlon actually. So if we look at what their value proposition is, their value prop is, in the factory, we make cosmetics. In the drugstore, we sell hope. So this statement, that they created, it's a means of emphasizing the difference between manufacturing and selling. And a customer
Is this
job.
their company? Sorry, Dave. Is this their company value prop then?
Yeah, that's their company value prop. And then that's actually the company value prop from the founder of Revlon. That's Charles Rebson, if anyone's looking it up. So for them, that really highlights the difference between, because essentially Revlon is a beauty product manufacturer, right? But, what are they actually selling? So that's really the difference. So a customer job to be done is the full end-to-end process that a consumer goes through when they want, your product. And, it starts when they want something that will improve their life, and it ends when they obtain or give up on obtaining the object of desire. So, Revlon knew that success meant not just making a cosmetic and manufacturing it, but rather selling beauty, good looks, and self-esteem, right? So for them, it's more about focusing on the emotional and social jobs, not less about the functional, okay? So another example I'm going to use is we're going to use Tesla for kind of throughout this as a good example. It's funny, we were talking about them earlier. So first, for you guys, you're going to do this in a moment. I want you to think about that customer segment in mind. So first, we have to select our customer segment for Tesla if we're going to use them as an example. And for Tesla, we're going to select an upper class male with $100,000 annual income. Okay, and the product that we're focusing on for them is not just Tesla as a company in general. We're focusing on one of their products. Okay, so we're going to focus on the Model S, and the Model S lines up with this certain customer segment that we've just described here. Okay, so what would be the jobs to be done for this potential Tesla buyer? Okay, so things that we would list off here would be, okay, well, it's a car, right? So we got to commute to work. I need, what's the other jobs? I need personal mobility. I need to get around. But I also have, I want to be different from others. So that's more of a social job. Perhaps I want to take the occasional long distance trip. That's a job a car needs to do for me as well. So that's a bit more functional, but it also can be a little bit more social as well. I want to convey an image of success. Definitely more of an emotional job. And I want it to be in sync with my personal values. So I want you to just take a couple minutes here. We'll take 2 minutes, and I want you to start to pick one of your customer segments, and I want you to list off some of the jobs to be done that you could see for that potential customer segment. Okay? So it's 12:39 right now. We'll go to 12:41.
Hey, David, it's Tyler here real quick. What slide are you on? And what one? Because you sent me a file, a few of them in there.
Yeah, so we are on so right now you would see the slide that says, what are the jobs to be done by of a potential Tesla buyer? And you'll see little yellow stickies on the right-hand side on top of the customer profile.
Okay.
Sorry,
and
David,
it was, can you say, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tyler.
There was 2 slides or presentations that you sent there. Is it the one with the orange for value proposition?
Yeah, we're in the orange one, the value proposition canvas presentation.
Okay, thank you. And then are you able to see what slide you're actually on? I see the sticky note one with the square and the circle. Perfect. And
yep, we're on exercise number 1, if you want to go to that one.
Okay. All right, thanks. I just want to say great job. This is making it a lot easier for me. I was able to watch the video while you guys watched the video, so thank you.
You're welcome, Tyler. So I put up another slide here just to help you guys if you're having trouble. There's things you can ask yourself to kind of prompt these customer jobs. think someone has music playing.
Your screen keeps going black, Dave.
Yeah, I'm just adjusting something right now. There we go. I'm going to just move the slide again. These are some other customer job questions you could ask too. These are just here for you guys to use later as well, but they're a lot more detailed. Okay. All right, I think that's enough time for you guys. So at the end of this presentation, I'm gonna ask some of you to share some of your insights. So, but we're gonna move ahead right now, and we're gonna go into the bottom box of the, or sort of bottom part of the pie there, which is our customer pains. So here we have to identify our customer pains that are involved in purchasing a product or service like yours. And pains describe anything that annoys your customer before, during, and after getting a job done. So this could be an undesired cost and situation, any type of negative emotions they feel, or any type of risks that are involved. Now, pains can be functional, a solution that doesn't work. They can be social, which is, maybe feeling that you'll look bad doing something around your product or service. It could be emotional, meaning you'll feel bad every time you do this, or they can be ancillary. So it could be something extra where perhaps it's annoying to go to the store for this product or service. Now, customer pains are, all the things that a customer hates about the job to be done that we're focusing on. They're the things that make a customer let out like a silent groan at the thought of having to travel to a certain part of the journey in order to end up, where they want to be. So here you think about like a commercial airline, think about jury duty, think about going to the post office. So that's kind of how we think about customer pain. So I have a list, a couple trigger questions here that can help you, think of a different customer pain. So what does your customer find too costly? Okay, so does it take them a lot of, and this costly can mean in terms of time, money, and effort. So does it take them a lot of time to do something? Does it cost them too much money? Does it require a substantial effort? Another question is, what makes your customer feel bad? What are their frustrations, their annoyances, or the things that give them a headache? Okay. So when we're going through this, you're writing out as many things you can think of, including obstacles they're trying to remove and risks that they're trying to mitigate. Okay. So we'll look at the Tesla example again. So what pains do Tesla buyers have that they might want to avoid? So things here that we have listed that you can see on the screen, we have lack of charging stations. Obviously, that's a potential pain for one of their customers. Teslas can have, actually they have a little bit more above average maintenance than a normal vehicle. They're a hell of a lot heavier. So there is a lot more brake wear and tear, tire wear and tear, and suspension wear and tear. That's something that average people don't realize. For the uneducated individual, there's fear of the extra services in the vehicle draining the battery. So using certain things in the car that may cause the battery life to deplete. There's also a fear of having a dead battery. The fear of having to do frequently charge. And then the fear of buying it and then having the price decrease. So, Tesla is a status vehicle, and if you buy an expensive Tesla and then the price decreases because it goes mainstream, that's definitely more of a social fear that people have as well, okay? So for this part of the exercise, I just want you to, take a minute and describe some of the negative emotions, undesired costs and situations and risks that your customer experiences or could experience at any point during interacting with your brand. So this is before, during, and after getting the jobs done that you've explained, okay? And then I have some questions up on the screen to prompt it. So Tyler, this is the slide that is labeled exercise number 2. You'll see some of the questions listed here to help you, okay? So it'll take 2 minutes and go ahead and get some things jotted down in your customer pains. That's weird. It just turned itself off. Sorry, guys. There we go. Can we still see the screen? Yes? Okay. Keynote. Jeez. Okay. Was that enough time for you all, or do we need any more time? We got some things down. You got some items jotted down, everybody? I'm looking at you all right now. Nodding? No nodding? We're good? So-so? I know this will take, usually we do this workshop, we take a half day to give you a lot more time to kind of explore it, but you'll get to do this kind of in your own time. Okay. So next we're gonna move on to customer gains. And so for Tyler, this is in your customer profile. It is the top part of the pie, okay, with a little smiley face. Now, customer gains obviously are the, I'm going to move my camera here actually, are the inverse of pains. And gains are the things that make customers excited to use your product or service. Gains are the things that make a customer happy. They make them satisfied or positive about the process. So think about short wait times and no lines, lots of cashiers at the checkout. Those are things that would make you happy in a shopping experience of, like going to, if you had to go to Canadian Tire or Home Depot right now during the pandemic, yeah, those things do not exist, short wait times and no lines. So gains describe the outcomes and benefits your customers will require, expect, desire, or would be surprised by. And I know we've kind of covered this in different ways, but this is where you would list it out. So things that are required, expected, desired, and unexpected by your customer. This includes functional things, social things, emotional things, and cost savings, okay? So required gains are the gains that without these required gains, a solution doesn't work, okay? So for example, the most basic expectation that we have, again, of a smartphone is that you can make a call with it. That is the basic required gain. An expected gain, these are these are relatively basic gains that we expect from our solution, even if it could work without them. So for example, we'll use the phone example again. So when Apple launched iPhone, we have the expectation now after the iPhone that cell phones will be well designed and they'll look good. Okay, so that's an expected gain. A desired gains are ones that go beyond what we expect from a solution, but would love to have if we could. So things we desire. These are usually gains that customers would come up with if you ask them for, in your product or service. So for example, we desire smartphones to be seamlessly integrated with other devices. So in the case of Apple, that, the phone integrates with your MacBook, integrates with your phone quite seamlessly, okay? And then unexpected gains are gains that go beyond the expectations and desires of your customer. So these are things that they wouldn't even have come up with if you asked them. So before Apple brought touchscreens and the App Store to the mainstream, nobody really expected those things to be part of a cell phone package, okay? So a customer gain can be more or less relevant to customers, just like pains, and can feel more or less intense to them. So there is a sliding scale of relevancy for these things, okay? So questions to ask yourself here to get you thinking about different potential gains is, which savings would make your customer happy, in terms of time, money, and effort? What outcomes do your customers expect, and what would go beyond their expectations? So maybe, what quality levels do they expect, and what could you offer more or less of? What required or desired outcomes and benefits do your customers want to achieve with your product or service? Okay, pretty simple there. So for our Tesla example, what outcomes and benefits do Tesla customers want to achieve? So things we have listed here that Tesla list off would be, okay, they want to have a classy design. They want the vehicle to perform like a sports car. Maybe they want it to have instant brand recognition. A required thing is that it needs to seat 4 to 5 people, of course, right? They want it to have a high-end battery. That's definitely a nice gain. And another one would be to have a range of 250 to 300 kilometers, perhaps self-driving, and then definitely having a high safety rating. So these are all great gains. And all of this information is what they would have gathered from studying their customer and talking with their customers about potential things they would hope to see. So take 2 minutes here and describe the benefits that you think that your customer expects, desires, or would be surprised by, okay? And remember, we're thinking in terms of functional utility, any type of social gain, any type of positive emotion they're gonna have, and any type of cost saving, okay? So 2 minutes, go for it. Does anyone have any questions, concerns about gains?
Can I just mention mine real quick, just to see if I'm on the right path?
Yeah, go for it.
'Cause it's food, so I have a really hard time differentiating this stuff with food, because food is just so for required, said it should taste good and look good and maybe be recyclable.
Right.
And then for expected, I thought maybe the spice level, they expect it to be hot.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track there.
Desired would be oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, continue.
The desired would be that it looks and tastes great and will impress others. Show off a bit, whatever.
I think I like that. I think that, yeah, they desire to, if you're talking about your really hot stuff. That's a
Yeah.
nice to have, is something that they can show off with, to say that they had a strong enough palate to be able to handle it. And, I think that helps with that recognition. Food has a lot of emotion attached to it too. So, you can play into the emotional side of, making sure that your brand is recognized as, local and fresh ingredients. So like, what does that actually mean to that person?
I said unexpected, positive local brand recognition.
But that could be, so depending on who you're focusing on, which target customer you've selected, it could be that that's an expected thing for them, right?
Okay, I kind of see it. So this is, I did B2C, more of general. We want to kind of really drill down into those actual customer profiles.
When you do this, this is why we did, we talked about profiles and things like that before, because when you go through this exercise, you have to be very specific about who you're targeting. If you go too general, this leads to generalizations that don't really help. This is meant to be a very, very granular exercise. That's why we kind of build into this. And I know it's still tough because you're still working on the stuff from last week and this week, but it's good to introduce this, and this is something you can kind of reiterate with in time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so once you've done that, so you've got you've got some things down for your jobs, your pains, and your gains. What you do is, so usually we do it on stickies, right? So on sticky notes. So we've got all these things listed. What we then do is we prioritize them. And we want to, order our jobs, our pains, and our gains into columns, side by side, so they each go beside each other. And you want to order them in columns, each with the most important job, the most extreme pain, and the most essential gain at the top. And then and then the moderate pains and nice to have gains would be down at the bottom. Okay. So for each pain and gain, you also want to indicate how often that pain or gain could actually occur. Okay. And that will help you prioritize as well. You'll start to see, is this something I really should be concerned about? Or is it something that I need to be less concerned about? Okay. So this really helps us to see what jobs actually matter to our customers. So if we look at the Tesla example and we order them out, so the jobs the pains that that Tesla ended up focusing on was that the pain was that they had that fear of frequent charging, the fear of dead battery, and then the pain of air conditioning actually draining the battery. Some of the gains that they prioritized were that, it has to have a range. So if people wanted a required range of 250 to 300 kilometers, they wanted the car to, they realized that performing like a sports car for this target market was important, and that it had that instant design and brand recognition. So this led to them, taking their job, listing out the jobs and saying, okay, so one of the things that's clearly important is that the car needs, the job that these types of customers need to get done is that the vehicle needs to convey an image of success before anything else. It secondarily needs to be about personal mobility and getting to work. But first and foremost, it's about conveying success. Okay. And I think that Tesla's done a really great job at, pushing that through in their brand. Okay. So now that you sketched out a profile for your customer, we need to tackle the value map side of the canvas. So now we're going to switch over to the other PDF that I sent you. And Tyler, this is it's called value map, and it is the square box with the three kind of triangles in it. And again, I want you to look here at three things. First, you list all the products and services that your value proposition is built around. So in the products and services box on the far left, the little triangle, you want to look at, you want to ask yourself which products and services you offer that help this target customer get either a functional, social, or emotional job that you identified on the other in your profile. You want to focus on the product or service you have that will help them get that job done, or help him or her satisfy like a basic need. Okay. And for those of you that don't know, products and services can be physical and tangible. right? So they can be your manufactured goods, they can be your face-to-face customer services, they can be digital and virtual. So they can be an app, a download, it can be some type of online coaching service. They can also be intangible. So this could be like things like some type of quality assurance. It could be a company that offers trademarking and copywriting. They could also be financial in nature. So maybe it's, investment funds or financing services. But it's important to acknowledge that not all your products and services will have the same significance to your customers. So some products and services are your core in your value proposition, and then others are going to be kind of merely nice to haves or add-ons, okay? So with the example of the Tesla, what are we selling to this customer segment? Well, I've already told you, we're selling the Model S. That's what we're focusing on here. And the add-ons and the other things that we're selling to them is going to be an 8-year battery warranty. And then there's always going to be additional options too. So things like maybe a larger screen, maybe the add-on of the self-driving. Maybe it's bigger rims and cooler rims and tires, right? So for you guys, what I want you to do here is think about that customer profile and there are jobs that you've identified, and then you're going to list all the products and services of your existing offering that you're going to provide to this customer profile. Okay, so take another minute, and you should have these already in mind, and list a couple off. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to move on to pain relievers. So, so we have to kind of outline how your product and services create value, and a great way to do that is by by providing some type of pain reliever. So you describe how your products and services alleviate the pains that you identified in the customer profile. So how do they eliminate or reduce negative emotions, any undesired costs and situations, and risks that your customers experience or could experience before, during, and after getting one of those jobs you identified done? And typically great value props, they alleviate only a number of severe customer pains, but they do that very well. You can't focus on all of them. You can only focus on a few and do those really well. So make sure you focus on pains you have identified in this customer profile, okay? So in the example of Tesla, we outline how their products, currently help their customers alleviate pains, eliminate those undesired outcomes, obstacles, risks. So with the example of Tesla, we have, so they've identified that one of the pains was the frequent charging. So that was an issue, and that there's that fear of dead battery. So what they did was they iterated the ability into the car to have, if you're driving between 45 and 90 kilometers an hour, it charges the vehicle, okay? So that definitely, allows the car to go a lot further, and it gets rid of the issue of needing to do frequent change. So through a specific type of alternator, it's able to, take that energy and push it back into the battery. One of the other issues was that they had, accident and harm. There was a fear of safety around it. So what they did was they made sure that they had the highest classification of safety rating. So they have actually the highest safety rating ever by the NHTSA. So super safe vehicles. And then, of course, one of the other fears was like, being able to go the long distance. There's still that fear of frequent charging, the fear of the battery dying in a long distance travel. And they did identify that, people, one of the things they wanted as a gain was 250 to 350 kilometers. Well, they went above and beyond that as a pain reliever. They give the vehicle ability to go 350 to 450 kilometers. Okay. So for you guys, take a minute here. And you just want to describe in exercise number 5, how your products and services are going to alleviate some of the pains you identified. Okay. And I provided some kind of trigger questions here to help you, think a bit differently. You ask yourself, what savings could you produce? What could you do to make your customer feel better if you identified that as a pain? What could you do to fix underperforming solutions in your industry and around your product? What could you do to end, difficulties and challenges that your customers encounter? Okay, how can you make things easier? All right, so just take a minute and list a couple off here. All right, does anyone want to share what they had as a possible pain reliever?
I was just about to say, Dave and Kelsey, you're here too. I need to go meet with my supplier. I owe him for a bill that I haven't paid yet. This won't count as me missing the rest of this day, though, right? All right. Yeah, he just called me and I gotta go pay a bill. Fuck. So it was a great day, guys. I'll be up and ready to go tomorrow too. Bye, guys.
Okay, take care, Jared.
Hi, Jared.
Anyone want to share what they're considering as a possible pain reliever? Hold on, let me see. I can't see anybody. Someone just unmic themselves and go. Jesse, go ahead.
I don't want to take it all up. If anybody else wants to go, I'll just keep rambling because I don't think I have the right stuff. Okay, I'm going to go. So my pains, I thought, were for my specific customer profile of this chili head guy. He's not able to find unique products, and he needs he wants flavorful food. So my pain reliever is that I make a unique product that has tons of flavor and spice.
Awesome.
It just still feels so generic and basic.
It is generic. I think the presentation we do after this will help you a bit on, kind of getting a little bit more specific. But you're definitely on the right track, right? You want to start thinking that way. You have to put yourself in your customer's shoes and really understand, the difference between their like a thing that they want to have and the thing that it causes them trouble. So like, in your instance, if I'm your customer, and I'm at the grocery store and I see a bunch of hot sauces, what are some issues I'm having in my selection and in my choice? Around that, what's all the things that go through my mind? So this whole exercise is just meant to you to kind of get into the head of your customer a little bit better. It's not something you're going to perfect right here and now during this presentation. So don't worry about it. You're definitely on the right track. Okay.
All right.
So next we look at gain creators. So this is the kind of the final part of the value proposition canvas. And Tyler, this is the top of the box of the value box. So this describes how your products and services obviously are going to create some type of gain. So how do you create benefits that your customer expects? desires, or would be surprised by. And again, we think about functional utility, social gains, positive emotions, and cost savings, okay? So if we look back at the example with Tesla and outline their gain creators, we think, okay, again, we think about performance, because one of the things that they said would be nice is that it performs like a sports car. So how do we address that? Well, it goes 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.4 to 6.2 seconds. Another thing that they wanted was brand recognition and design, like something that was well designed. So they gave it a high-tech feel. You know, they have that 17-inch touchscreen on the dash, very sleek looking body style, and very unique front-end design with no air intake, right? So they've addressed, so they, you know, you look over at your nice to haves, your desires, your requireds, and say, okay, how am I addressing those things in my product and my service design? So how specifically am I addressing it, okay? So that's where we go back to those FABs, right? The features, advantages, and benefits. So what are the specifics that you're actually going to create out of these insights? So for this last part, the last exercise here, exercise number 6, you basically would just take a minute and you go ahead and you describe how is your product or service creating some gains based on your observations. So I have a list of trigger questions here that'll help you think about, you know, think a little bit differently. So again, think about what you have listed there. Are you creating some type of savings, you know, cost savings that makes your customers happy? It could be time saving, effort saving. Are you producing outcomes your customers expect or that go beyond their expectations? So this could be better quality levels, giving them more of something or less of something. Are you outperforming some type of current solution, you know, to delight your customer? Or you're making their life a little bit easier or a little bit more healthier, right? Okay. So, and then obviously the relevance here is important because not all outcomes or benefits are going to resonate with all your customers. So there's gonna be a level of relevance here with what you list, okay? So just take 1 minute, list a couple things down that you would think would be amazing gain creators for that profile you've selected. Okay, so once we have all of these listed out, we've got our products and services listed, we've got our gain creators and our pain relievers all listed. We then have to, again, rank them by order of importance. So you take everything that you've got listed out there and you rank your products, services, pain relievers, and gain creators according to how essential they are to your customer. And this really helps us to see, again, what is it, like what jobs is it that actually matter to our customers, okay? And we're not gonna do that right now. You can do that in your own time. So this is kind of what we end up with here. And this, Tyler, if you're on your slides there, it's the slide that says the big but. So we end, you know, we have a great list of awesome benefits now that we have learned by observing and researching our customer. The question now is, you know, what can we actually do with this? How does this help actually build a strong value proposition and the different contexts of our value proposition? So we have all these insights, and now we need to actually learn something from it. So the big takeaway here, once you go and do this yourself, is to take the, you know, the box side, the actual value side, and take these insights and iterate them into different versions of your value proposition. So whether that's your company value prop, your product value prop, a category value prop, a homepage value prop, we can then take all these insights. But then the other thing is also looking on the far right in the customer profile and looking at the jobs to be done that we actually identified, so that we actually know what are the things that we actually have identified that our customers have to get done in and around our product. And those will really help if you've done your work. They'll help in your copy for your marketing. You'll start to understand what value or what functional thing that you actually need to happen with your product or service. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump to our other presentation, and we're going to actually go through how to actually create and write an amazing value prop. And we, a basic one, if you've Googled value proposition template, I'm sure many of you have, is you'll end up with something like this that we went through during our business model canvas, and we did this one for Nespresso. But we want to make it, we want to make something better than this. We want to make something that's all our own and make it something that really makes people stop and take notice of what we're offering. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you are going to go and do this on your own, kind of a few mistakes to avoid when you're doing the value proposition canvas. One of them that we see happen is, you don't look at the value proposition canvas as two separate building blocks. Remember, we design on the left and we observe on the right. So we have to first observe our customer, understand them really well, research them really well, and then we tailor our offering to them, okay? Another mistake that people make is mixing several customer segments into one value proposition canvas, kind of like what Jesse was doing, is being a little too general. Remember, you want to be as specific as possible here, and you may need to design different value props for different customer segments. In fact, you definitely should. Another mistake to avoid is creating your customer profile through the lens of your value proposition here. So you want to design a value for your customer, not the other way around. You have to design based on what you learn from them. So this is where we kind of got to take our bias out of it and be a little less, and be more objective, okay? So try to take yourself out of it as much as possible and put yourself in the shoes of your customer. This is why it's important to have surveys and ask questions, okay? Another problem is that you can have is only focusing on functional jobs, and this can end up leaving out other jobs that may be really relevant to your customer. So we mentioned social, personal, and emotional jobs, like looking good, feeling good, self-confidence. Those are sometimes more important than those functional things. And then lastly is if you try to address every single pain and gain that your customer might have, great value propositions only address the most critical jobs, the critical pains, and the critical gains that a customer has. We can't be everything to everyone. So focus on what's most important to your specific customer, and then create your value prop that addresses this really, really well, instead of trying to be all things to your customers. Okay? So with that, I'm going to close this presentation. I'm going to open my other one. So just give me a second here, guys.
That was a lot.
Too much?
We're now, I don't know, me personally, I'm now starting to stack things for 2 days on top of this. So it's just a lot to take in.
I get that. I definitely get that. I know we're trying to crash course a lot of this into you. I think this one will help to really kind of break it down a little bit better. I wanted to show you kind of that as the tool you can use. And this one will really kind of help us with more templates. So don't worry. I think by the end of this presentation, you'll have a little bit better understanding. And remember, this is just all things for you guys to take away and use as tools in your business, right? Like if we only gave you time to focus on one or two things, we're kind of leaving out a lot of key components. So a lot of the stuff is for you to use in your own time afterwards as well, okay? Give me 1 second here. I just want to move this up. Okay, so next presentation is about now we have all this information. We have observed our customers. We've researched our competitors. We start to know what we want to offer and what we are offering. But now you got to tease it all out into an amazing value proposition. There we go. So what we're going to go through for this presentation, first we're going to identify, what exactly, from a technical standpoint, because we haven't actually talked about this, what actually makes a great technical value prop. And then we're going to focus on kind of the 4 main types of value propositions. We're going to talk about how they're all connected together and how you're going to use them. And then actually talk about how to create one for yourself. There is a bit of a process that we're going to go through now, okay? So first thing we're going to look at is what is an actual value proposition, okay? So why, your value proposition has to kind of answer the questions, why do your customers buy from you? What motivates people to choose you, to choose your products over hundreds of alternatives? What makes your company and your products, better than all the rest? That's what we're trying to answer with these statements. Perfecting your value prop can increase your conversion rate and improve your marketing strategies across a ton of channels. And learning to present your value prop, your company, and your products, and products delivered, in a compelling way is one of the most high-value, wide-reaching marketing activities that you're ever going to do as a business. Okay, so this is important to continue to iterate this and continue to work on this. Now, a value proposition is essentially the value you promise to deliver to your customers post-purchase. It's ultimately what makes your product attractive to your ideal customer. And a compelling value prop needs to meet 3 criteria, okay? So when you're designing yours, think about these 3 criteria, keep them in mind. It needs to be specific. So it highlights specific benefits that your target customer is actually going to receive. It needs to be pain focused. So it states how your product or service will fix the customer's problem or improve their life. And it needs to be exclusive to you. So it highlights your competitive advantage and sets you apart from the competitors. Now, we don't want to confuse brand slogans, catchphrases, or even positioning statements with value propositions because they are different things. And the same goes for your pitch. Our morning exercises are called value proposition roulette as kind of a catch-all term here, but we are being specific to the traditional meaning of value prop when we're talking about this today. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? I can't see you, so if you have an issue, tell me. Okay, good.
I do have one question.
Yes.
So when you were talking about, it was L'Oreal, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Revlon.
Revlon, yeah. So their value proposition. So like when we're reading out our value propositions, or like in the morning, and like mine is getting more concise over time.
Yeah.
But like their value proposition is literally like, well, it was that in our factory we do this, and then to our customers we make out like the outcome it was. Yeah. So it was one quick sentence. So
Yes,
like, does the value proposition have to be that small?
It can be. So we'll talk about that in this presentation. There's going to be different versions of it. You'll have a bunch of different iterations. There is no perfect value prop because there's many different ways for it to be used. When we go into the types of value props, it'll start to give you guys a lot more context. So yes, it can be that small. It also can be parts of that about section on your website. So it lives in many instances, but like what I'm trying to say here is that these are kind of 3 criteria that in and around it, it needs to focus in, whether it's in that smallest version or the largest version. It needs to be specific in regards to, it needs to talk about these specific benefits that your customers get from you. It needs to have at least a touch on the pain points, how you're solving a problem or providing some type of solution, improving something, and it needs to be exclusive to you. So that doesn't mean that it just has to be those things in a tiny, concise sentence. So it can exist in different versions of it, okay?
Okay.
So the key thing when designing your value prop is you want to focus on the outcomes that your customers get, okay? So this is outcomes they receive from your product or service, not on specific just features, okay? Rarely is your value prop, the product itself or its features. Instead, it's the way that the brand or product fixes a meaningful pain point, improves the lives of your target audience, and it is often the way it makes them feel, okay? That's why when we say flip the script on your value prop, sometimes we'll say, has this ever happened to you? You see a lot of value props start that way. Have you ever had this problem? Have you ever felt this way? That's often, you know, one of the most ways to kind of get people to take notice is starting with that more emotional feeling side of a value prop first, okay? Okay, so putting your value proposition front and center is super crucial for successful marketing. It's what you should lead with on your website, and almost all of you should be thinking about doing a website if you don't already have one. And it's what all other messaging should support and reinforce. As an example, although it's often found above the fold on the homepage, you should be aware of other common, you know, entrance points where your value prop should be displayed. So it could also be on a landing page. It can be on category pages for your website. It can be in blog posts. It can be on product pages, and it can be on your social media homepage. So even if you manage to create an effective value prop, it won't drive sales if it's tucked away in a dusty corner of your website or absent on you know, possible high purchase intent pages. So make sure you bring it front and center, okay? Don't hide it. You know, so another key point, you know, what makes a good value prop? You know, a strong value prop needs a strong hook. It needs to communicate your brand's what and why in a way that speaks to your audience, is clear and concise, and communicates whatever your brand promise is, okay? And it needs to do it in a way that's a bit descriptive, okay? So those are some of the categories or classifications of what would make a great value prop. Now, there are 4 important types of value proposition we're going to talk about today. We have the company value proposition, you have your homepage value proposition, you have a category value proposition, and then we have the product value proposition, okay? And your website is the most prominent place that your value prop will live and be displayed, but your value prop is more than just the big, bold heading on the homepage. And obviously, it's these other, you know, these 4 clear, distinct types of value props. And I'm going to go over one with some examples so you guys can kind of see different versions of them, okay? So the first that we're going to talk about is the one we've been working on this whole time during your, you know, value prop roulette. And this is the company value proposition. So if we use the company called Studio Neat, I don't know if anyone's ever been on their website before, we can see a very simple but concise value prop from a company that focuses on simplicity. That's what their big focus is on, and that's what they sell. And you can see their value proposition and brand ethos is communicated through their website, even though it's not explicitly stated on the homepage. Now, their value prop is Studio Neat creates simple products that solve common everyday problems. And they are simple products that deliver simple but desirable value. So they sell little kind of cool things, tripod mounts for your smartphone. They sell little wood docks for your cell phone. They sell wide grip styluses for your stylus pen. So they're very kind of like tech savvy, little cool like extras that nobody really needs, but they're cool to have. And they make, you know, they're simple, well crafted, nice designs. So they even have things on there for like making and storing simple syrup in a cool way. I thought that was kind of interesting. I was trying to look at relevant things that, you know, some of you guys might want. I was trying to think of a food related one. So cool website, definitely check them out. Now, the theme of that simplicity, you know, that you hear about in their value prop is continued all the way into their product pages. As we can see here with, you know, one of their product value prop statements, which is, you know, on your nightstand or at your desk, it's nice to have a designated spot to charge your devices. These charging docks come in 2 versions, one for iPhone and one for iPhone and Apple Watch. So we see no exaggerations here, no complex product details, just a simple statement. It almost reads like a customer wrote it themselves. So it's, you know, their business is all about being simple, and even the way that they describe everything and display everything is simple. So the next type of value proposition we want to talk about is the homepage value proposition. And this is that big, bold heading that can live right on the homepage of your website. So this is probably the value prop that we're most typically familiar with as consumers. It's the one that we often see when we go to most websites. So the example that I have here is from a company called Novo Watch. You know, your homepage value proposition will definitely, for you guys, is going to depend on the type of business you run. So for example, you know, if you have a small number of products, your homepage value proposition might be more product focused. But if you have a wide range of products and services, your homepage value prop might be more company or brand focused, okay? So in our example here with Novo Watch, their homepage value prop is very product focused because they really only sell one kind of product category. So their value prop is time, what is it here? So I thought I wrote it out. I'm not sure. Timepieces handmade in Alberta from repurposed pieces of history. Okay, so that's a pretty strong product-focused value proposition, but it really gets down to the point. You know, they have a relatively small number of products, and they're specifically focused on watches. And if they were to introduce, you know, a line of handcrafted pens made from pieces of history and a line of handcrafted wallets made from pieces of history, their homepage value proposition here might need to change, obviously, right? Now, you know, with their value prop, you instantly know the difference between a watch from Novo and their competitors. The value here is unique and undeniably different from the competition. When you arrive on the site, the value proposition, you know, it fills that. That's what you see above the fold. So that fills your whole screen, fills the entire page. But you also find the value proposition, again, is reiterated on the product pages. So what you see here on the right is some of the descriptions from their product page. So the continuity from the home page to the product page is immediately evident. Phrases like manually wound timepiece and 132-year-old train track reinforce the value proposition, creating that kind of clear message match between the home page and the product page, okay? Now, considerations for your homepage design. So your website homepage is, you know, where the value prop will live, so it's important to consider, you know, how your viewer is going to encounter it. Now, recent research, you know, provides a few interesting insights about how you might tailor your presentation online. There's a 2017 CXL Institute study ran a test on how different value prop presentations affect a viewer's experience. They used eye tracking and survey tools, and they tested 4 kind of different formats that you see here laid out on the page. And they tweaked image placement and the amount of text that appeared. Sorry, I just have something in the chat here. Oh, Kelsey left. Bye, Kelsey. So yeah, they tweaked the image placement and amount of text to see what worked better. Now, the results from that study revealed a few surprising things. What they found was first that more text got more attention. So when text took up more space, users noticed it more quickly. More text also took more time. So when text took up more space, users spent more time reading it. More info also helped with recall. So the more details included, the better users could remember the purposes of the service that they were providing. Similarly, when more services were actually listed, they would recall more services. Bulleted lists were better. So users preferred text design with few bulleted items. Now, although the amount of information played a role here, that doesn't mean that you need to write a novel-length value prop. Okay, it doesn't have to be, you know, a whole page long. The placement and design of the text made it more prominent, you know, a more prominent element on the page, which is an aesthetic choice, and it is up to you guys to decide on kind of those aesthetics. The real takeaway here is that the more info you can communicate and the clearer your message, the more it can hook a reader's interest and get them to continue to move along on your website towards whatever conversion that you're hoping for. It's also interestingly clear that design plays a significant role in how your value prop appears. So research also shows that headlines, subheads, copy, and bullet points can help readers absorb a value prop more effectively and lead to increased conversions, okay? So here's a great example with a company called Comnio. So they had their website homepage value prop redesigned. So this is the before picture here. And after the redesign, they increased email signups by 408%, just with a few tiny little tweaks. So as you can see in the before here, it starts with the headline. As you can see, the original headline wasn't exactly thrilling. So if you can see it, it says, Camino helps consumers get superior customer service easily, effectively, and for free. Sure, it describes what they do, but it doesn't communicate the why, which is the emotional hook. And it doesn't feel very personal at all. Christine, yes, the slides will definitely be shared, don't worry. I'll make sure to post them right away. So yes, you're missing that emotional hook and it's not feeling personal. So this is the after. So to make it more impactful, Camino identified the major emotional benefit and used the second person, the term you, to speak directly to their consumer and directly to the reader. So they changed it from Camino helps consumers get superior customer service easily, effectively, and for free. And it became, we deal with customer service so you never have to. So that simple, punchy phrase draws readers in to find out how Camino does that, okay? 3 simple supporting subheads underneath there with those little icons highlight the functional benefits along with a clean image and a bit of an intuitive hierarchy in how it's laid out, giving the reader all the info they really need. So these simple, subtle changes, make for a value prop that makes a much bigger impact on the viewer and obviously on your bottom line because it increases conversions, okay? Does everyone see the big difference between those two value props? And definitely do we think the first one compared to the second one's far better? And especially even the visual layout too? Okay. So another example here, it's too bad Kelsey's gone. This is a great example from a former Leap-In client, from Ryan Kelly, who joined us in the first week. I know Ryan talked a lot more about Atrium, but this is from his homepage for Ascend applications. And this is a great example of a business that used a ton of feedback, both from fellow Leap-In members, but a lot from other competitors and other mentors to change and iterate. Let me tell you, the original launch website of Ascend applications did not look like this. This is a far, far better, clean design. So what I want to say here is, and I hope Ryan doesn't see that, I'm not making fun of his. I love the new design. His new site is amazing. He's come so far, but it took him, I think the first version came out in 2017, and this is 2020 now. So finding the right value prop and the right layout visually, for your website is a process that takes patience. You got to collaborate. So please don't get discouraged here if you're struggling a bit, okay? And I definitely suggest when you do get your websites up and running is make sure to do a bit of A/B testing to see that resonates most with people. You want to get feedback. You don't want to just go with your original design. You want to actually find out what is working and what is not. And that's where Google Analytics comes in. And that's what we'll be going through in a couple weeks, okay? So next, our category number 3 for our types of value proposition. Sorry, number 3 for our type of value proposition is called a category value prop. So you don't want to overlook the need for a value proposition on your category pages. And this goes for everyone who's a product here and everyone who's a service. And the reason why is that, just all you have to do is literally search on Google your kind of product category here, okay? So in the example I have here, I use women's jeans as the example, okay? So if you Google the term women's jeans, first you'll notice that all of these pages are category pages that come up in the SERP, okay? Women's jeans specifically. Now, this could also be a running club membership. It could be one of your boot camps, Kristen, or it could be a running club as a category as well. So it's not just product-based as a category. So every one of your websites will have a type of category page, okay? And it depends on the hierarchy of how you lay it out. And you definitely want to have these pages because they create more opportunities for you to give a value prop. And specifically, category pages are undervalued and underused, okay? So what you want to notice here is that many page descriptions are value props in disguise. And if you guys Googled this yourselves, you know, these are some of the big players, Abercrombie & Fitch, Bootlegger, Old Navy. But when you actually start going down the list, you start to realize that a lot of people, a lot of businesses have no description here, or it's some other metadata that was gathered from their website, and they've completely missed an opportunity to have a value prop here. So Abercrombie & Fitch, you know, has, if you look at their value prop here, it focuses on having variety and the perfect fit for everyone as a category. Bootlegger is about, you know, black jeans that won't fade. Old Navy jeans will make you look polished even on a casual day, okay? So when you click through the Abercrombie & Fitch example, you'll see the value proposition from that category is then reiterated again on the site copy. High rise, low rise, a variety of washes that fit for your story. All of these triggers help reinforce that value proposition that came from the search engine results page, okay? Now, if you Google women's jeans, you'll see it's still very, very uncommon to find a clear and succinct value prop on category pages. And you may find the same thing in the hot sauce category. You may find the same thing in the dog collar category, okay? Or in the life coaching category as well. So with so much competition among, you know, category pages on the search engine results page, that's a huge missed opportunity for you all that you can step up and capitalize on. So ask yourself what each category of products on your site promises that's specific, pain-focused, and exclusive. And that will help you come up with your category value proposition, okay? The last type of value prop that we're gonna look at here is the product value proposition. And the product value proposition goes, as you guessed it, on a product page or a service listing page. And each product within each category needs a specific value prop. So we think back to the Neat Studio example. And here we have an example from one of their products, like an Apple TV remote stand, which is great because I have an Apple TV and I freaking lose that stupid remote in the couch all the time. It's so tiny, it goes missing all over the house. And in fact, I often have to use like the phone app to control the thing because it goes missing a lot. And anybody who has an Apple TV, you may have experienced the same thing. So instead of having to, tear the couch apart a couple times a day, you buy Studio Neat's Apple TV remote stand. You know you're going to lose it. You won't if you buy this, okay? And that's their actual value proposition for the product. So it's very simple, straight to the point, and that's perfect because that's Studio Neat's company value proposition. They're not messing around with a big description here. They're staying true to their company value prop about being simple and neat, right? So yours is going to look much different. You know, some of you, if you're, you know, a local based hot sauce company, your product description might be about telling a story or being a little bit different, a little bit more interesting, right? So it's up to you to decide what that is, but it's important that the product value proposition lines up with the, you know, with the homepage value prop, the company value prop, the category value prop. They're all kind of linked together, as you can kind of see in this diagram here. So you're all starting to see how the value propositions kind of trickle into and influence one another. So start with your company value prop. Then we usually use that to develop our homepage value prop. then our category value prop, and then our individual product or service value props. So I think this really helps to kind of visualize the connectivity between them, okay? So now I'm gonna kind of go over a bit of a two-step template for creating your value proposition. And it's kind of a lie there because it's not just 2 steps. There's 2 main steps, but step 1 has 8 steps within it, okay? So now, now that we've gone over the kind of different versions of the value prop, it's a matter of combining, everything we've learned about value propositions to craft, obviously, one of your own. And that's what you guys have been working on every day. So there's no reason to complicate the matter here. So the process can be broken down into just 2 simple steps. First one is identify your value proposition, right? That's the hard part though. Second one is communicating your value proposition. So the question becomes, how do you get both of these steps right? We keep getting asked, how do I know I'm on the right track? So I'm hoping that this part will help to clarify it a bit more. So step 1, first we have to identify our value prop. And this involves 8 additional elements, most of which we've actually already covered, today in previous days. But before you dig into identifying your value prop, it's important to kind of frame your thinking properly here. All great value propositions start with one question in mind. You have to constantly think, what do I do better than anyone else? Maybe it's your customer service. Maybe it's your product or service design. Maybe it's the quality of what you offer. Maybe it's your pricing strategy. It can be anything that your customers find valuable. This is why we ask them, we observe them, we talk to them. This is why we list those jobs, those pains, and those gains, so we start to know what's important to them, okay? Now, a word of caution here, okay? Your company, your products and services are more comparable than you think. And I've heard this through some of your value props that you've been saying day in and day out. Your visitors to your website will certainly be comparing you to other competitors. So you need to beat them to the punch. See how your value proposition stacks up against the promises of your top competitors. This is why we do competitor research and SWOT analysis. What is it that will set you apart in the minds of those visitors on your website? Now you got to note that small values like free shipping, a money back guarantee, same day delivery, or some of the other things you guys have mentioned, these can be very useful in being conversion tools. They're kind of nice to haves or nice things to say, but they're secondary to what it is that actually is your unique selling proposition, okay? So what it is that makes you different. You have to always consider yourself, like especially on your website, and when you're talking to people, that they're always comparing you to the closest common competitor or the closest thing that they can call up that is like what you do. So you need to really make sure you've identified that what makes you unique and that you're iterating that in your value proposition. So if your answer to the question, what do I do better than anyone else, is free shipping, you're definitely not digging deep enough, okay? That's something anybody can copy and paste, meaning it's not a defensible value proposition. So often identifying your value prop requires quite a bit of thought and research, customer interviews, customer surveys, talking to them. So make sure to promote those free, free post-purchase gifts and shipping guarantees. Those go alongside your value proposition or any other type of add-ons that you're thinking of. So those help to kind of capture people on the fence of, maybe they got it in the cart. Those are those little extra add-ons. Maybe they're, looking on your site. It's like, oh, I do like that. I will make the call. I will give them my email, right? But that's just kind of a Band-Aid if the core value proposition isn't unique and compelling, okay? So the things that help us to identify our value prop. The first thing, and we've already gone over this part, this is what we call clarifying your brand heart. More often than not, when a brand struggles to articulate their messaging, it's because they don't have a strong brand heart. And that is the purpose, your why, your vision, your mission, and your values, okay? If you want to communicate effectively, you need to identify who you are and why you're in business in the first place. And that is encapsulated in kind of this core identity. If you haven't done it already, please document your purpose, the why you exist, your vision, which again is what future do you want to help create? What does this future look like? And we went over that last week, but Christine and Chris weren't here. You know, your mission, what are you here to do? What do you create that, you know, that can build a future for your business and for the world? What are the principles that guide you? So, you know, and your behavior, so your values. This will help you approach your value prop with more clarity and a stronger sense of identity, so that it will come through in what you're saying. Part 2 of identifying your value prop is about completing a competitive analysis, which was part of our homework for this week. So if you want to stand out, your value prop needs to pull people to you. And if they're coming to you, that means they're moving away from a competitor. So to do this effectively, you need to communicate how and why you're different, which is why a competitive analysis is vital. It helps you to truly see where you stand compared to the competition, specifically how you're positioned in the market. It also gives you valuable insight into how other brands are marketing themselves so that you can differentiate yourself, okay? Part 3 is another thing we've already talked about. This is about knowing your persona. Obviously, so we talked about this before. Personas identify demographic and psychographic info that gives you insight into who these people are, the ones you're focusing on, your target customers, what they care about, and also how they communicate, how to communicate with them. This helps you better tailor your value prop to speak to their core needs. It's crucial that it speak to them and not at them as well, okay? It's a very common problem when you have a weak value proposition. You're talking at them instead of to them. Step 4 in identifying your value prop is around gathering voice of customer copy. And you're in luck, we've already talked about this too. So the best value propositions used VOC, and that is they use the exact words of your current customers to hook your future customers, right? So for example, if they were interviewed for a case study, how would your target customer describe your product or service? How does it improve their lives? How do they describe your company? And how do they choose to associate with your brand? You have to interview your customers or send out a survey to better understand how they speak about you, both to other people and to themselves. And you need to pay attention to common words or phrases that they use. Your visitors should see themselves in your value proposition, okay? And that's very important. So the language you use plays a big role in shaping their perspective. Step 5 is about emphasizing clarity before getting creative, okay? So above all, you have to ensure that your value proposition is clear. And all of you have been doing really well at making clear, concise value props. And I know this sounds obvious. You know, your value proposition needs to serve many purposes. So achieving, you know, very crystal clear value props can actually be a little bit difficult. So when evaluating your draft of your value prop, ensure it answers the questions I have listed out here. You want to analyze it and ask yourself these things. Does it identify and is it clear what product I'm selling? Who actually should buy my product or service? How will buying my product or service improve someone's life? Why should my visitor buy from me and not my competitor? And when will that value actually be delivered, okay? So your value prop should be relatively short, you know, typically 2 to 3 sentences maximum. Every word should improve clarity or make your main selling point more compelling. Otherwise, you should cut it, okay? Part number 6 of identifying your value prop is focusing on benefits and not hype. How many world's best coffee signs would you see in a store window, you know, walking down one busy New York City street? There's gonna be dozens, right? each sign would make it a little more difficult to believe the previous. So hype, which can come in the form of what we call superlatives, so the word best, and exaggerations, which would be world's best, can be dangerous that way. So instead, you want to focus on distinct benefits and concrete value that your product or service actually provides. So if you need to use hype to sell your product or your service, it's a sign that your value proposition is not well defined, or perhaps even that your value or that your product is not as valuable as you actually think. Okay? So focus on benefits, not hype. Part number 7 is brainstorming your benefits. So up to this point, you've been absorbing the information you need, to help you effectively articulate your value prop. Now you can actually kind of dive in. So to start with a brainstorm, all the benefit, you want to brainstorm all the benefits you can think of. And this is what we already talked about today. These are the functional, emotional, social, all those kind of different benefits that are key to kind of really finding something that really resonates with your customer. So functional, again, as an example, if your software automates marketing emails, your functional benefit might be something like automation and an easy to use interface. So for Fast Track, that's definitely a functional component, right? Automation and easy to use. If it's emotional, your emotional benefit might be that it saves time for the drivers, it eliminates confusion, or it helps you build a stronger relationship with your own customers, so the people you're delivering to. So you can condense, combine, and refine, your benefits later. What you want here is a master list, and that's why we went through the value proposition canvas, so you can brainstorm a ton of stuff, and then you rank it and trim it down. Okay. Step 8 is drafting rough versions of it, and that's that's the fun thing that we've been doing. But it's also a bit challenging because you have to identify the most appealing, relevant, and unique points of differentiation from all your brainstorming, all your lists, and those will be the elements to lead with. So a key thing here is when you're trying this out, just try to articulate the most simple version of your value prop first, and then build out from there. So if you don't have a really simple version of it, start there and build out, refine, and expand, okay? Okay, the last part is about perfecting the presentation. Okay, so there isn't a single rule of how you format your value prop, okay? It may be 2 sentences, it may be a headline, a blurb, or it could be a few bullets, but it's important that you communicate it succinctly, clearly, but you always, always, always want something that actually has some type of impact, something that resonates with your customer. Okay? Now, a few additional tips around, creating your value prop is think of your target customer and the problem that you're solving. If you were suffering or seeking a solution that you provide, what would you want to hear from your savior? Okay? AKA your brand. Another one is don't get too fancy. So your language doesn't have to be really high-end vernacular. It doesn't have to be frilly. It just has to be impactful. It's better to kind of err on the side of directness and simplicity than confuse your reader with fancy language and long dialogue, okay? Last thing here is translate it into your brand voice. So there's a fine line between simplicity and generic company speak, okay? So if your value prop headline could work for any of your competitors, this is a good baseline test. Take your value prop and then go to a competitor's website and go, does this work here? And if it does, you need to iterate a bit more. You want your personality to shine through immediately, and it needs to be unique to your brand, okay? Now, back to step 2 of creating a value prop is about, again, we talk about presenting it, but it's also about communicating your value prop. So once you distill what it is that you do better than anyone else with your value prop into one single sentence or whatever format that you choose, you then want to obviously display it prominently. We talked about different places that you can display it, but you want to ensure that when it is displayed that it grabs attention. It needs to grab attention. That's the whole point. Whether you're saying it or whether someone's reading it, it needs to grab attention. So just like an article headline, many people will read the single sentence value prop and then they will move on. If they like it, they might read a brief elaboration or just continue on to the next step. But if they don't like it, they'll often just go ahead and leave, leave your website, or, they wouldn't leave the conversation, but they may just become disinterested. So that's a lot of pressure that just, one sentence has. So you want to make sure that you're getting it right. That is, you want to make sure that it's clear and it's relevant. So it's a useful exercise is to spend the time coming up with 10 to 15 variations of your initial value proposition for your company, okay? And then you want to use those iterations on all of us. We're your test subjects during value prop roulette, okay? Now, you'll want to know which one of those 10 to 15 is the most unquestionably clear. And a simple 5-second test can really help you with that. So, we're great as a group to be sounding boards for each other, but you want your customers to be your real sounding board. They're the ones coming there that are going to buy. So you can do a 5-second test. There's websites that you can go on and you can get testers to go to your site. There's ways you can add this into your site, but for those who don't know what a 5-second test, in a 5-second test, people see your site, with your value proposition for 5 seconds, and then they answer questions about what they saw. What do they remember? What do they think your site does? What do they think your product does? And it really helps you to start seeing, is my value prop actually working or not, okay? If you find people can't answer the questions correctly, that means you have a clarity issue. And a common clarity problem that a lot of websites and brands experience in their copy is hiding the value. Here's an example from Best Buy. TV and home theater. It's big, it's bold, but it's prioritized visually here. But the value proposition is actually what's underneath it. Bring home the full cinema experience. That's actually the value prop. It's hidden by the category at the top. Another couple examples. Same problem from Tiffany & Co. and Topshop here as well. So Tiffany, high jewelry, and then the value prop is underneath in a long sentence, right? So it's all about highlighting your value prop in a more clear, succinct way. And the 5-second test is just one way to test your value prop. You can also run on-site A/B testing. I definitely think you all need to look that up and understand it really well. I know Liz will talk about that in her presentation in a couple of weeks too. And A/B testing helps you to figure out which of the 10 to 15 variations are most effective. So basically in A/B testing, we have 2 different or 3 different versions of your homepage or landing page. And you use some way of getting people there, and you have some of your test subjects go to version A and some go to B. And you start to see over time, you take a measurement and see which one is working and which one is not. You want to understand which variation of your value prop is most effective in creating the action or conversion that you're hoping for on your website. Short of that, you can also run paid Facebook ads or Instagram ads to test the persuasion power of each of the variations that you have. So you can also create an ad and put that value prop in the actual ad, and based on which ones people are clicking on and going to your website or going where you want them to go, that will help you to start to measure which one's working and which one's resonating. The same can be said, not just for value prompt, but also the creative content of that ad as well. So it could be about the imagery you use as well. Okay, and this is really, really helpful when you have a low traffic website, which a lot of you might have at this stage in your business. So your value proposition is a promise to your future customers. If that promise is specific, it's pain focused, and it's exclusive, you will turn future customers into paying customers, okay? And that's the goal here. That's what we want. Every entrepreneur believes that their company and products and services are valuable. That's why it's so easy to overlook the way that the value is communicated to strangers. So spend the time to perfect your promise. It's not just a branding exercise, it's a marketing exercise. that will pay off over and over again, okay? And as support here for you guys, I have some templates. This document here is 7 proven templates for writing a value proposition that works. Definitely check those out as you guys are kind of iterating your own versions. The second one is just, you know, more value prop examples and templates too. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. It takes us to 2:05, so we just went over. So I'm going to end my screen share, and if you guys have questions, concerns, I would love to chat for, we'll take another 10 minutes. Okay, Jesse, you had your hand up. Do you have to go?
I was just copying Chris Farley.
Oh, nice, nice. Awesome. So, thoughts, questions, concerns about what we learned today or in value props?
I actually really got something from this that do you know Reimagine Co. in London?
Yes.
So I follow them on Facebook because I thought what they do is cool, and they did a price increase, and they were talking about the word transparency, and I'm like, because even with my value prop and how people are weary of where donations go and all that, it made me really think about it needs to be very specific. Even the copy on the website needs to show bios about companies and all that kind of stuff. And are there any examples of I guess you were telling me about Tentree, they do that really well. Is there companies that do that really well where it's because I do notice my competitors, they talk about it, but you don't really see where it's going.
I'm sorry, what specifically is your question, Chris?
What is the best way to show authentically and transparent through your value props on your website that you're actually doing what you're doing?
Okay, could you give me some context around what you're talking about? It's what are you trying to be transparent
so
about?
I'm going to donate 5% of my profits.
Okay. So
And
that is kind of that's talking around that essentially is an add-on service that you provide, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, you want to include an element of that in your company value prop, and you have been doing that, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about getting very specific on, you know, you want your customers to know that that's an element of your business.
Yeah, I want to do what I'm trying to say is being open about it, being real, showing where the money's going on the website, having a profile on the charities, show the work that they do, anything short of showing the dollar amount, because obviously you don't want to say you made $500 in sales. You don't want to show them how much sales you're making on the website.
I think it's about being able to show the impact that that the organizations you're working with can have, you know, and supporting them. You know, when we're talking specific to the value prop, I think that's more of making sure that the value prop around, I would consider that a service in your business that you're providing.
Yeah.
You're selling products, but an additional service that you're offering is the ability of your consumers to, you're helping them solve an issue and solve a problem of they're concerned with, the ethical treatment of animals and how they're being taken care of and things like that. So it's important to showcase that as a product value prop. And I think you need to have something that is concise. And I think it's displayed in a different way. So you need to have a succinct way of saying that, that it focuses on the pain points around that. So I would look at the organizations you're going to support, because you're still trying to choose who you're working with. And then look at okay, what is it they actually help with? You want to get specific here, right? So if you're going to donate money to them, it's not just I support animal shelters. That's pretty generalized. Tell me so pick a specific organization that you work with, and what are the things they actually do? How are they actually helping? And then tell me about that specific thing in that value prop for that impactful side of your business, okay?
Oh, okay.
So example I used with you was Tentree, right? If you go on Tentree's website, you can see full story. That's a whole big element of their business is, they went so far as not just donating money to plant trees with organizations that do it. They have full-on teams. They have a whole side of their business that's, they have teams that go out and, they provide jobs and volunteer opportunities, and these teams go out and actually plant the trees themselves. So they keep control of the impact that they actually have. And in fact, I think last year they ran a campaign on Instagram where it was they were trying to get to 1 million trees planted. I don't know if any of you guys happen to see that. And they ended up like blowing past it to like 3 million, I think, through their campaign. And it was all about highlighting the stories of the people who do the tree planting, all about highlighting the environmental impact that this just one organization is actually having. So you need to kind of focus on the specifics of it. Don't be general. So like if you're going to work with like a specific local organization, you may want to just call them and talk to them and be like, okay, if I'm donating money to you, like what is the thing that you're actually helping with that I can, and then that will help you figure out what you want to highlight. Does that help, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? No? Yes? No? Okay. Well, with that, thank you guys. Thanks for hanging in there for the presentation. I hope this helped. I think, I'll make these slides available. The videos will be up. But I hope this helped to kind of clarify a bit more of how you, like different ways you can use the value prop. So like, those examples I think be really helpful. I know we've been talking kind of contextually and theoretically. Now this kind of really helps you kind of see how they're used in different ways and give you a process to go and kind of refine your own. So as I said, tomorrow we're not doing value proposition roulette. We're going to be doing our brag and drag with our guest Shannon. And then on Monday, Monday is our creativity day. So we've got James Kingsley joining us, who's a branding and creative specialist, as well as Kendra Matheson, who is going to be talking about content marketing. So to kind of get us in that creative headspace, we are going to be doing something different that morning. We're going to be playing this game. I don't know, has anyone played it before? Called Disruptus. And Disruptus is a design and disruptive thinking game. So we're going to be breaking into groups, and we're going to be coming up with like innovative product solutions like on the spot. It's a lot of fun and it's really silly. It's just, you just try to come up with the most ridiculous ideas for things that you can come up with. So I think that'll just kind of get us out of being so like technical and maybe having a little bit more fun with our creative thinking. And then we'll resume our value props roulette on Tuesday. So I'm hoping that we'll see some big differences from this morning to Tuesday. So with that, we are done for the day. And I'm going to close out the Zoom room. I have, Kelsey has office hours today from 2 to 4. So if there's questions that you have, make sure to shoot her a message or an email, and then you will meet with her on Whereby. Okay, so thank you again for another great day, everybody. You're all doing excellent. And I'm going to turn off the recording right now.